I don't know about you, but I only trust the best. So if you're looking at getting your roof checked out, redone, these are the guys that can help you. Belter Roofing and Construction, they are the best. They'll come out, do a free inspection. You can trust them with your roof. Call them, Belter Roofing and Construction. 405-952-7777. That's Belter Roofing and Construction.
This is the Jake for the State podcast, and this is the call for every red-blooded, God-fearing, liberty-loving patriot to prepare yourself, take your position, stand your ground, and advance the cause of freedom. Let's go.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Jake for the State podcast. And here with me today is candidate for House District 48, April Brown. Welcome to the show, April.
Thank you, Jake, for having me. I appreciate it.
You bet. You bet. Well, I know you've been busy out knocking doors and hearing from the people of House District 48. Before we get to the details of your campaign, I want to just get to know you and let the people know who you are. So give us a little background on you. I know that you served, and then what have you been doing up to this point?
Okay, good. Yes, I grew up in Oklahoma, joined the military, was gone for over 20 years.
What branch?
I was Oklahoma National Guard, then went active duty Army. My husband and I retired and come back to Oklahoma to take care of my dad in 2015, and we've been here. So I'm married. I have 4 daughters. I have 3 granddaughters and a grandson, and he is 6 weeks old.
All right.
So, and my daughter, my oldest lives up by Enid. My second daughter is a Marine right now, and the last 2 are still at home in college.
Okay.
So busy.
It is, no doubt. And where do you live again?
I live in Pauls Valley.
Okay. And your district, what does that encompass?
Okay, so Pauls Valley was split in half when they redistrict. And so Pauls Valley down to Ardmore, over to Hilton, back up through Ratliff and Elmore City. So it's, Tussey, Fox, there's, a little bit of Davis, a little bit of Wynnewood, but it's a pretty big area to hit.
Right. It is. And so, my district when I was in the Senate was pretty concentrated. So I could get around my whole district in 30 minutes. It was nice,
That would be nice.
But I know some of these others that are spread out, man, it takes a while to cover some ground.
It does. And you have to really strategically plan on where you're going to go and how you're going to hit those doors so that you can get to the doors. And it's refreshing hearing the people going, you're the first representative that's running for candidate, to be a candidate that came to my door.
Wow.
And I'm like, shame on us. Every representative, everybody running for election should hit the doors and go and meet the people, not just fundraise.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what it's about. And even I think this helps set you up for when you are in office to better understand the landscape of your district and also help make preparations on how you can still engage with them after you're elected, because that's the point, right?
Exactly.
I mean, that's also the problem, I think, that a lot of people have is people get elected and then we never hear or see from them again. And so what is it like with you? Obviously, you're running against an incumbent.
Yes, sir.
And when that's the case, I usually say it's probably because there's some areas where you're not satisfied.
That is correct.
What are some of those areas?
Well, right now, the incumbent, so those that I've knocked the door, I presented my push card. And so right now, the incumbent has tried to make every Oklahoma road a toll road. And I'm calling it the track and tax. So basically, track every mile you drive and tax you. I think that's an infringement on our constitutional rights. I also look at the Oklahoma Republican Party has a platform and expects our Republican candidates to live up to the Oklahoma Republican platform. And currently the incumbent has a 28%. And to me, that says there's Democrats that have a better rating than the current incumbent.
That's the conservative rating.
Yes, sir.
20% conservative.
Yep. So that's a big issue to me. The idea of big government tracking everywhere we go, taxing us whenever our rights, according to the Constitution, is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, doesn't mean we have to have a taxation for everything. I mean, I think we fought a war.
Pretty
You know,
significant one.
if you think about your history, I think we fought one because of taxation without proper representation.
That's right.
And so,
That's right. So what is her argument? Who is your incumbent?
Representative Townley.
Okay. Okay.
And she says she's not for big government, but when you look at her voting record and and her attendance, you go, well, obviously, if you're not for something, but yet you vote in line with which equals big government, then you are big government.
Right. Well, the toll roads are, a lot of times people don't think about that as a tax, but it is. I mean, you're being taxed to drive on your roads.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been hearing more about this push to make every road a toll road. And what has she laid out an argument for that as to why that would be good for Oklahoma?
No, quite honestly, even at our Garvin County GOP, through some of the questions, she didn't mention anything about it. And I look at it and go, one, she tried to put forth a purchasing, let me get my tongue tied, order so that big government could go behind closed doors and purchase without oversight. And so you look at that and go, well, no wonder she's leading up to the 15-minute cities, basically.
Right.
And if people don't understand about the 15-minute city plan, and so when you think about all of this in conjunction with the bills that's come forth and how she votes, you just go, wait a minute. Who is encouraging her to vote and to go according to the voting record she has versus what the Republican Party is wanting? And the Republicans need to step up and say, listen, if we have a platform and that's our guidance for how a person is supposed to vote, then maybe you should reassess. If there's something that needs to change in the Republican platform, let's work on fixing that. But right now, everything about the Republican platform, I agree with. I might have a little bit more conservative values because I am a Christian, and I take my walk with the Lord very serious. I went 29 years without Christ as my Savior, and so we've got to reassess what Oklahoma values are. And Oklahoma values doesn't mean you go to Arizona for a national legislative convention. Doesn't mean you go to Colorado or any place else, because Oklahoma value is here in Oklahoma. We need to teach and we need to educate Oklahomans and stick with the Oklahoma desire. And that is small government. We want our oil. We want our gas. We want our way of life.
You're out knocking doors relentlessly, leading obviously your grassroots candidate. On your mailer in big bold print is no lobbyist money.
That's correct.
Why are you making such a statement about that?
Well, one, I want it to be constituent based. Whenever I knock a door, I want to meet the people. I want them to meet me. We have a mutual understanding that I'm representing them, their values, their desires that line up with the Republican platform. And so if I accept money from lobbyists and special interest groups, then there's going to be strings attached. And those strings do have consequences. And I look at it and go, Oklahoma has allowed dark money into Oklahoma. I mean, you saw it firsthand with your candidacy and how the dark money went against you. And if we're going to allow that into Oklahoma, then we're not Oklahomans. We're going to become California or New York or Chicago. And that is not who we represent. We love Oklahoma because we are free. Land is supposed to be free. We're supposed to be able to enjoy the quality of life that we have ordained to have here in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I've been around the world. I mean, I've been in 7 different countries, and I've lived in Oklahoma and Tennessee and Kentucky during my military career. I came back to Oklahoma, and I look at that, and this is a place where we have a lot of conservative values. And if you're a conservative and you have the value of your freedoms, your First Amendment rights, then you don't want those infringed. no matter what's going on with big government. You don't want someone to tell you have to wear a mask, you have to take a shot, you can't go here, you have to go there.
When you experienced that firsthand, you mentioned, we did an interview on my radio show, 96.9. For all you guys out there listening, you can tune into that Monday through Friday, 7 to 8 a.m., 96.9. But we were on there, and you talked about what got you into this political process in the first place, and it had to do with your father.
Yes.
And talking about government overreach. Tell us more about that story.
Well, Dad, in 2019, finally, we had to put him in the VA nursing home. Dad he did 4 tours in Vietnam, double Purple Heart recipient, highly decorated veteran. And whenever COVID came, Dad was at the point where he was not ambulatory. He could get up and in and out of the car, but he couldn't walk around anymore. And when COVID happened, they locked him down, and they were going to let him die of cancer instead of cancer was not as important as a virus. And so I basically fought. I went to Senator McCourtney. I went to Senator Rosenio, and even Representative Stark gave me some guidance. I took it to the governor, ended up with the director of Veterans Affairs, and fighting and advocating for my dad. Ultimately, 1, I got to take him to all of his medical appointments. 2, my dad became a born-again Christian after he saw the change in my life.
Wow.
And so the Lord allowed me to reach my dad and show him what salvation was.
How old was he then?
He was in his 70s.
I love it.
So, and we lost him in 2021, but my dad wanted to come to church. My husband's his pastor. My dad wanted to be at church, and he knew that that's where he needed to be. And so through COVID, while everybody's in lockdown after, several weeks, my dad got to come out and go to church on Sundays. My dad had me escorting him as his power of attorney to his medical appointments because I advocated and fought for his rights. Who better to have their freedoms than veterans that served faithfully and dutifully to protect the Constitution? And it doesn't end when we take our uniform and our boots off. It is a commitment for life. And so that's why I'm here.
What did you see in that process that motivated you to run?
The lack of leadership, the lack of proper representation, the lack of government's role. Government is to secure our rights. We have the blessings of God because we are a constitutional republic. We're not a communist country. I lived in Germany for 8 years. I saw the oppression even years after World War II. I've been to concentration camps. I saw their socialized medicine. That's not American. And so it can stay over in Germany.
Yeah. Well, it's frustrating, whenever right here in Oklahoma, we're seeing those that don't seem to understand that we are a republic, that we are what a Republican means.
Yep.
Then probably haven't read our Constitution, both either federal or state.
Correct.
And what's your guiding principle? I mean, when you talk about legislation, what are the boundaries, the perimeters that instructs you as to how to make law and legislate if you were to be elected? Okay.
Well, first and foremost is the Bible. It gives me clear guidance on how to live my life. It's my instructions. It is my foundation. Then the Republican platform, which lines up with my values. I mean, like I said, I'm probably more conservative than a Republican platform is, but the Constitution, ultimately, first and foremost, if we deviate from our responsibilities as a constitutional republic, then do we have a constitution? Do we have a republic? Are we what we say we are? And right now, I look at Oklahoma. Whenever you deviate from Oklahoma's constitution and then the federal constitution, then we're not a sovereign state. And our representatives need to remember we're a sovereign state. I mean, look at Oklahoma passed marijuana. Do I agree with it? Well, it's not for me to say I agree with it because I could care less, honestly. It's just one more one more thing to hold back Americans and Oklahomans from having a prosperity that they deserve, and big government having their hand on it. But Oklahoma passed it by a vote of the people. And right now, federally, it's illegal. Not that I'm promoting marijuana in any stretch of the imagination, I'm not. But it's just one more way to show we can exercise our sovereignty by going to the voice of the people.
Oh, absolutely. And obviously, in a republic, the voice of the people is expressed through their representatives.
Yes.
And you mentioned, I think it may have been in our previous conversation, the interview on the radio, that at the GOP meeting, I think it was, that the current representative said she was there to represent the constituents, that when she was asked to explain her very low conservative rating, her response was, well, she is accountable to her constituents, and that this is a reflection of what her constituents wants. What is your response to that? Because that doesn't seem to line up when I think about conservatives electing her, and then if she is listening to her constituents who elected her, are they now more liberal now that they have elected her, or is she listening to some other voices?
Right. Well, and you know what? The beauty of getting into research and knowing where funds come from, Ethics Commission is open for anyone to go in and search and say, well, who is funding that candidacy? Right. And so right now, most of her campaign funds are coming from lobbyists and political action committees, PACs. And so when you look at that, is that constituent based? You know, right now, who has the financial purse strings making the puppet follow their decision? And so I look at that and go, that's what's happened. I believe maybe in the beginning, I didn't know Representative Townley in the beginning. I didn't become District 48 until 2022, but maybe she had conservative values. Maybe she had the right desires when she first began. But right now I see her, any of the conservative group, to include the constitutional group that rates and scores her, she's got a low rating, and it is based on her vote. And if there are constituent-based votes, I would like to see, you know, how many constituents contacted her and how she verified that they are constituents and then voting according to the majority. I mean, right now I was asked, how am I going to stay in contact with my constituents? Well, 1, there's Facebook. 2, there's a website. 3, there's an email. I mean, there's a way to stay in communication. And I also have my phone number out there. Yeah. You know, so that people can contact me, so that I can receive a text message saying, hey, you've got this bill coming up. I would like for you to vote yes or vote no. And then the question is, how does that bill affect the future of Oklahoma? Like this track and tax bill. How does that affect the future of Oklahoma? Well, it affects us by, we are now being tracked everywhere we go, which is unconstitutional. We're being taxed on every mile we drive. Soon it's going to be the Green Deal, where if your vehicle doesn't meet the emissions standard. I was in Germany when Germany changed to an emission standard. I was over there driving a Ford Expedition, and I had to have a special sticker because we had the SOFA a status agreement, you know, the status of forces agreement, and I had to have a special sticker that we didn't have to fully deal with that because we were military, you know. Okay. And I could see how Oklahoma could change to that because some of the forethought of some of the bills that's coming across their desk, there's going to be implications that's going to be harmful to Oklahoma.
Well, to be tracked everywhere you go. And one of the things you mentioned here in the mailer, as you explained this, House Bill 1712, the road user fee, one of the things you mentioned is, hey, what if you go to a gun show and you have the FBI, the ATF tracking you, knowing where you're going? I mean, we saw what happened on January 6th with all of the attendees there being tracked. And that's concerning. That's concerning when you see the vitriol and oppression against conservatives, against the Second Amendment. Mm-hmm. And we here in Oklahoma are saying these are things we value. We don't want the federal government tracking our every move. So Yeah, we're seeing the attempt to be implemented here in the state, and it is concerning. And especially, like you said, rolling it up with the whole push for electric vehicles. And how is this being received in your district? I mean, what are you hearing from the people? Does this particular issue resonate with them? The road user fee?
Yes, that they couldn't believe that she was part of it, and disappointed.
Well, it's not something that's going to make, I don't think, headline news.
No.
Well, I think largely because our news has been bought out too, and very
Yes.
liberal, even here in Oklahoma. And so not something you're going to see highlighted in a newsreel. So it goes off the radar,
Right.
and people in your district may not be aware that this was even an issue being discussed, let alone that their representative was one that was leading the charge in it. So I think it would be very important that they understand
Right.
what's going on. But yeah, back to the question. I mean, what are you hearing from them about how they feel about this? Do they support it? Do they support you because you're opposed to it?
Well, like I said, a lot of them are very disappointed. They're very upset because it is an infringement upon their rights, and it has opened their eyes to what's really going on at the state capitol. And a lot of them are like, why would she do this? And quite honestly, I don't know what her reasoning was. I still don't. But I look at it, if we infringe upon their rights, it will be just like the redcoats coming here and dictating to us before the Revolutionary War that you're going to be taxed.
Yeah.
You're going to be taxed on every piece of paper that you write on. You're going to be taxed for your tea. You're going to be taxed for, I mean, why did we lose so many people fighting for this country over the years if we are going to be overly taxed? That is not small government. And to track us, yes, there's always going to be bad people out there. I mean, bad people blew up the Mara building. Bad people flew into towers. There's always going to be evil out there. But does that mean because there's evil out there that I should be monitored? I should be known if I'm going to a gun show. I'm a Garvin County 2A coordinator. That means I love my gun rights. And for me to go wherever I go does not mean the government has to follow and have to know everything I do. Every purchase I make at Natural Grocers is my choice. That's my choice. That's my right. And if we continue down this path of government overreach, how long will America be, or Oklahoma be Oklahoma, and America be America? It's not long, and we're riding on the blessings of our forefathers. And so who am I to not fight? I'm willing to fight. I'm willing to stand up against the tyranny. I'm willing to stand up and say, no, we're a constitutional republic. We have to give our children and our grandchildren the blessings of being an American, but more specifically, those that choose to live in Oklahoma, the freedoms. The red state that we are will not stay red if we keep this path.
And yeah, I mean, wow, so important. You're a homeschool mom.
Yes, sir. 19 years.
19 years. Now, we had the recent tax credit pass, and a lot of the homeschool community that we're a part of as well, my wife and I, has been concerned about this because of the potential and I believe inevitable government overreach and intrusion into the homeschool community and even private school community. When you start accepting money from the government, you're not getting your money back. You're getting the government's money now with strings attached. And that's been my concern. And what are you hearing in the homeschool community concerning the tax credit? Was this something that you were for? And talking about that in connection with parental choice as well.
Well, that's a good question because I didn't fill out surveys in 2022 like they wanted me to, because I, at that time, still was not going to be tied to special interests such as that. But I was against the voucher, against government intrusion into the homeschool family, because as a homeschooler, I funded what curriculums I used for my children. And for 19 years, I had to critique curriculums based on each individual child because my girls learned differently. 4 daughters, and each one of them had a different way of learning. And so, no, I did not want to see that. Well, now I work for the public school. I'm an in-school restriction teacher, and I've seen the effects of the voucher following the money following the student. And it's not a success right now, and it's not benefiting the community. Whenever you think about the student can go to any school. So when you think about that, we live in Pauls Valley. Paola is about 10 minutes away, and a student can go from Paola and come to Pauls Valley. Well, if they're not old enough to drive or provided a vehicle, how is that student going to get to school? And that's a good question, because if we're going to allow that student come to Pauls Valley and it's only a 10-minute drive, but that student has no ability to get to school other than mom or dad who's supposed to be working a job or possibly working a job, and they're not able to be there, then that student doesn't show up for school for the day. So what are they learning? What are they doing? Not to get off on a side note, but when you look at the big picture of government's effect, government's responsibility, government is supposed to be securing our blessings. They're supposed to be providing domestic tranquility. We have all of those things that are needed, but government allowing, students, and maybe I'm wrong for this, but I don't think so, but students need to go close to where they live so that they are able to be at school on time and be committed to being at school. And then if the schools need to close and us to do a restructuring, I mean, that happened whenever I was in school. Elmore City went from Elmore City to Elmore City Purnell because the school couldn't provide for their students. And so the school's always going to be a big issue. And quite honestly, the incumbent has said that she's going to make a ginormous pay increase to teachers and staff and state employees. Well, if you cannot reduce the state tax burden, then how are you going to give a ginormous pay increase and be effective? And so, no, I was against it. I'm still against it. I've seen the negative effects of it. And again, government needs to stay out of homeschoolers, churches, private schools. They have no reason to be in there because the strings attached are harmful.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up here with this last question, just again to help people out there listening, especially those in District 48, know who you are, what you stand for. I think they've got a pretty good idea right now. But mentioning the Republican platform, one of the things it talks about is taxation, which we've already talked about, but in particular, reducing or eliminating state income tax and property tax.
Correct.
And is that something that you hold to?
Yes. I know that if Oklahoma has an excess of funds, and Governor Stinn has already asked the legislative body to go ahead and reduce the tax burden. They gave us the grocery tax. They did away with that, but we still have a lot of funds that they can continue to reduce the tax burden in Oklahoma. Why aren't we? Why do we have a nest egg that is doing nothing to help the burden of Oklahomans? And so I look at this, now's the time to reduce the tax burden. Now's the time to reduce any effect that the government has the ability to help the people. I mean, we chose to be in Oklahoma. California is not our destination. Californians have moved to Oklahoma because we do have a lot of great benefits. And we're not, blue.
Yeah, and we want to keep it that way. April, I really appreciate your time and just laying out your positions. And you got a few more weeks left coming up to June. No, we're not going to go to January. June 18th with the primary. So you how do you feel about the race so far?
I'm excited. The fact that I've got mailers going out to hit the doors that I've maybe not hit yet. The idea that so many people are rallying behind me, it's exciting. It's nervous. It's exciting. I don't know what to think right now other than Lord's will be done.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your time here today.
Thank you.
And good luck and God bless in this race.
Amen. Thank you.
Now, before we leave, I should have said, how can people find out more about you? What is your website?
Okay. It is Brown448. So BROWNFOR48.com. And I also have a Facebook that's connected to my website. So go on there. There's resources. There's things about the incumbent that will open your eyes because bills have voting records.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. Well, you guys go check it out on her website. She's got all of her information about her and her campaign, and I'm sure even a link to give, huh?
Yes.
So be sure to get behind her if you like what you hear. But I appreciate you guys tuning in to the Jake for the State podcast. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. We got to get the word out and help people across the state understand who the candidates are and what's happening in the state. That's the goal of this podcast. So I appreciate you listening, but also like, share, and subscribe to get the word out. All right, until next time, we'll see you then. This is Jake Merrick.